The rain poured heavily against the windows of the small apartment as Sarah sat hunched over her desk, staring at the English textbook in front of her. It was a typical evening, dark and stormy. Sarah had always struggled with English, even though she was fluent in other languages. Her mind would wander, distracted by doubts about her ability to improve. But tonight was different. Tonight, something clicked. She had a plan. She wouldn't let the storm outside control her focus, just like she wouldn't let her past struggles control her future. This time, she would commit to learning English in a way that worked for her, and it would start now. Sarah had often heard people say, "Practice makes perfect." But the thought of memorizing vocabulary words and grammar rules didn't excite her. She wanted to learn English in a way that was meaningful, something that felt relevant to her life. After searching online, she found a method called immersive learning. It wasn't about studying for hours from a textbook. It was about making English a part of her everyday life. She could watch movies, listen to podcasts, and even engage in online conversations. Sarah's excitement grew as she realized that learning English didn't have to be a burden. It could actually be fun. The following day, Sarah woke up with determination. She started by changing the language settings on her phone and social media apps to English. Every time she checked her phone, she was exposed to new vocabulary, and soon she found herself noticing words she had never thought of before. The process was slow at first, but she didn't mind. Every small step mattered. By the end of the week, she had started reading simple English articles and even understood the majority of what was written. The once overwhelming language seemed a little less daunting now. As Sarah continued her immersion method, she began watching English TV shows with subtitles. At first, she would pause every time she didn't understand a word, frantically searching for the meaning. But as days passed, she became more relaxed. Instead of trying to understand everything, she focused on picking up phrases and expressions that native speakers used. By the end of the month, she found herself repeating words she heard in conversations or movies, using them in her day-to-day interactions. Slowly, Sarah was building a bridge between her native language and English. One evening, Sarah joined a language exchange group online. It was a free platform where people from different countries connected to practice speaking in English. At first, she hesitated. The idea of speaking with strangers in a language she barely knew made her nervous. But something inside her pushed her to give it a try. When the conversation began, Sarah stumbled over her words, but the people she spoke with were kind and patient. They corrected her mistakes gently, offering tips without judgment. Sarah realized that the fear she had about speaking English was all in her head. She felt empowered and determined to keep going. Soon, Sarah found a local cafe where an English-speaking group met weekly. It was a casual gathering for language learners, and it felt much less formal than any classroom setting. She was nervous, but she knew she had to push herself. The first session was overwhelming, but she gradually began to relax. She made a small breakthrough when she introduced herself without hesitating. The more Sarah practiced, the more confident she became. The group didn't care if her accent was perfect, and they certainly didn't mind when she made mistakes. It was a safe space for learning. One day, Sarah was talking to a friend on the phone when something remarkable happened. She realized she had been speaking in English for the past 10 minutes without even thinking about it. The conversation felt natural. She had transitioned from doubting herself to being comfortable with the language, and it was a moment she would never forget. This achievement wasn't just about language. It was a personal victory over her own insecurities. The confidence she gained from speaking fluently in her second language carried over into other areas of her life, strengthening her resolve to keep going. But Sarah's journey wasn't without challenges. There were times when she felt frustrated, when it seemed like progress wasn't coming fast enough. She doubted whether she was truly improving. Yet, every time she felt like giving up, she reminded herself of how far she had come. She would look back at her old notes, reading through her first attempts at writing in English, and realize that she had indeed grown. Improvement didn't always happen in a straight line. It was a gradual process, but each step forward mattered. As Sarah's English skills improved, she became more adventurous in her learning approach. She began writing short stories and essays in English, using the new vocabulary and structures she had learned. She even started a blog to document her progress. To her surprise, people from around the world began reading her posts and leaving encouraging comments. Her writing was far from perfect, but it was her authentic voice, and that was all that mattered. By embracing the imperfections of her journey, Sarah had created a space where her confidence could continue to grow. 1 year later, Sarah stood in front of her English class, giving a presentation without a hint of nervousness. It was a far cry from the girl who once feared speaking in English. Her journey had been full of small wins and big breakthroughs, but it all started with a decision to push past fear and start small. She had transformed not only her English skills, but also her belief in herself. Sarah's story wasn't just about learning a language. It was about growth, perseverance, and the power of believing that you could always improve, no matter where you start.